Chapter 13, Sollel didn't make a move and remained silent beside Hakarin when the elven warriors blocked their path to the center of the sacred forest. Wariness could be perceived on the elven warriors' faces as they took a fierce fighting stance against them, the intruders. Leave! The elf who seemed like the leader of the whole squadron of elven warriors spoke calmly, skillfully hiding his agitation toward the dark-cloaked person who was exuding a dangerous aura. You are trespassing, leave immediately. Usalil heard Hakarin's deep, low voice. It was filled with provocation. And if we don't want to, Salil could only smile inwardly. Ever since Hakarin and Hakin fused together, the negative character trait he hid from Salil started showing up one after another. Hakarin's more adverse characteristic, rude, insolent, impatient, brutal, vicious, violent, etc., dominated when the two merged. However, behind his domineering attitude was Salil's sweet and slightly flirty Hakin. His sweetness and coquettishness were only reserved for Salil, his queen, which Salil loved. Who wouldn't adore a man who was only doting on her? For a possessive lover like her, he was adorable. This is your second warning. Leave immediately or you will be punished. The leader of the squadron blocking the path was cautious of Hakarin, but from time to time, he would steal a wary glance at Salil, who was hidden under the deep blood-colored enchanted cloak made by the king of druids. Salil wanted to be inconspicuous. It was what she, Hakarin, Gatria, and others agreed on until they could find out more about the Moonlight Stone, which was being researched by Sierra and Zeke. That said, with regard to the enchanted cloak she was wearing, anyone could obviously see that it was made from an exquisite material, and no matter how much she tried to be a simple, uninteresting companion, it just wouldn't work. This is your last warning. Oh, Hakarin's tone was condescending as he reached for his war blades on his back. You want to fight? Without delay, Solaris, the war blades Salil gifted to Hakarin, excitedly flared up as he drew it from his back. As the ablaze war blades burned violently in Hakarin's hand, automatically the leader of the squadron dropped his weapon and prostrated in fear, his head touching the ground as he apologized. Please forgive us, Warlord Hakarin. The squadron leader bowed intensely multiple times, his head strongly slamming on the ground. We didn't know, please have mercy. Hearing the name Lord Hakarin, every elven warrior present dropped their weapons and followed the squadron leader. They prostrated with dread. Who wouldn't know Warlord Hakarin a drow in the sacred forest? Who wouldn't fear him? Not only did he trespass in the elves' territory without trepidation, he also burned nearly half of the sacred forest when things didn't go his way. Everyone remembered how the elders convened and used their essence together until near death to restore the burnt part of the forest and other vegetation. No one wanted to offend the warlord. No one, Hakarin put back his war blades. I'm here for the king. The squadron leader immediately moved to the side to show the unhindered path and give way to the warlord and his companion. Only Warlord Hakarin Adral could see the king without proper audience appointment. The elven warriors couldn't help sneaking glances on Warlord Hakarin's companion when the warlord gave way to them and let them take the front as if he was a loyal subordinate. Zalul suppressed her essence to not alarm anyone. She had to be inconspicuous. These enchanted cloaks made by King Turak consumed a lot of essence that he could only make a few. Thus, she needed to be careful not to alert those bastards who had moonlight stones. Salul controlled her steps to stay beside Hakarin. Why are they afraid of you? Hakarin casually responded as if it was not a big deal. They wouldn't let me meet their king before, burned half of the forest. A proud smile stretched across Solol's lips hidden under her hood. That's my man. Hakarin let out a low, satisfied chuckle. Only you would praise me for burning the sacred forest. Solol snorted. They banished Sierra and didn't let you see their puny king, so it's only fitting. Yeah, yes, Solol confirmed, her face slightly contorting in annoyance. If only we're here for a different reason, I'll burn them all. Hakarin reminded Solol, Queen Gatria will make you kneel and reflect again. Solol immediately went cold. On second thought, I'm not an unreasonable queen. Angry Gatria is scary. I remembered when she buried me and Enwin alive as punishment. Hakarin was not surprised anymore. He knew that his Krahika was very childish and destructive before the Ither Kingdom's siege, always being punished, but they never learn. She was Queen Gatria's and Queen Astrid's pain in the neck. She had only become reserved and distant because of what happened. But the original mistress of flame was vivacious. Scary, yes, but also kind and benevolent. I'm curious about all the things you did to warrant a severe punishment from the two queens, he teased his Krahika. I should ask Queen Gatria, don't you dare, Solol snapped. I'll burn you, you can't, I have Solaris. HMP, then you will not be my warlord anymore. Hakarin immediately took back his statement. Who cares about the past? The present is more important. Good that you know. Hakarin smiled and let his Kratika win. Meanwhile, the squadron the two left behind contacted all the elven warriors in the sacred forest and the castle through the communication crystal. They informed them about Warlord Hakarin and his companion. So upon receiving the information, the most skilled elven warriors were summoned back to the castle and were ordered to be on guard. The elven elders were also notified, and they immediately left their chamber to go to the king's side. In less than an hour, the elven kingdom was ready to receive their most hated being in Azatura, Warlord Hakarin Adral. They've prepared, Hakarin lowly commented when they finally reached the center of the sacred forest where the elegant and exquisite elven castle was located. Elven knights were guarding the castle's entrance. Meanwhile, the elven warriors surrounded the castle while others were patrolling. Everyone was heavily armed and vigilant that the two uninvited guests thought that the elves were preparing to apprehend them for trespassing. But no one approached Hakarin and Solol as they entered the castle gate. Instead, there was a high-ranking official waiting for them at the entrance to receive them. It's good to see you again, Warlord Hakarin and his companion, said the official in a calm and pleasant manner. Please follow me, the king has been waiting. Oh, Hakarin pulled down his cloak's hood and looked at the elven warrior and the knights present. Someone prepared a lot, planning to go to war or something. The official secretly gulped and showed Hakarin a calm smile even when he was trembling inside, knowing that this man in front of him could burn him to crisp. It's nothing like that. Hakarin's murderous aura spread and engulfed the inwardly scared official. Oh, why yes. The official voice broke while sweating profusely, and Solol couldn't help giggling, breaking the murderous atmosphere. The official didn't know if he should thank or decry the warlord's companion. He did neither for his own safety and just silently led the two to the throne room. Solol couldn't help being awed by the elegant beauty of the throne room. From jewels to highly priced furnishing, she could tell that the elven kingdom was prosperous and affluent. Then her eyes settled on the sit one step lower to the throne where the elven king was seated, the seat of the elven crown princess. That should have been Sierra's seat. Solol held back her boiling blood of flame. They were not here to make trouble, and Sierra seemed happy anyway. Yeah, let's calm down. While Solol was trying to relax, they had reached the throne and stopped at a safe distance for both parties. Hackerin had already pulled down his hood, but Solol's hood remained, which made every elf in the throne room take it as an insult to the royal family. Everyone was fuming mad, but they couldn't voice out their anger knowing the temper of the warlord in front of them. Everyone present might be able to kill the warlord if they worked together, but they were certain that the warlord would not go down without a fight. He would surely burn the whole sacred forest. And if there was one thing the elves were afraid of, that's flame. However, the crown princess couldn't tolerate such insult to the royal family. Princess Corridil spoke sharply at the person beside the warlord. How insolent of you to not greet the king and the princess of the Elven Kingdom. King Vestin, the Elven King, gripped the armrest of his throne when he heard his daughter's words. It was already too late to stop her. Even if he reprimanded her, nothing would change. His eyes settled on the warlord in front of him before it swept away to the warlord's companion. He was more wary against the companion than the warlord. Why? He could feel the warlord's overbearing aura, but he couldn't feel anything on his companion, as if the air around them had been suppressed to the point that it could not be detected. He had been alive for so long that he could immediately discern that he was in a presence of a monster. He knew the elven elders felt it as well after sensing their incredulous gaze toward the crown princess. Every being in Azatura had an aura from their own essence. Naturally, it could be suppressed, but only to a possible degree. Beings such as the one beside Warlord Hackerin, who had no essence leaking out of them, could be categorized as a dangerous individual. To save his only daughter, he reprimanded her even though it was already too late. Corridil, do not speak when you're not spoken to. Corridil couldn't believe what she just heard, and her eyes widened in disbelief and embarrassment. Her father had never scolded her in the throne room like this. Thus, her anger exploded, and she pointed her hand at the still cloaked person beside the warlord. Father, I understand why we should treat Warlord Hackerin with respect, but being humiliated by his subordinate is just too much. Everyone who didn't feel any strong aura coming from Solol silently agreed. Until their king reproached the crown princess again. Corridil, you may leave the throne room. Some would think that the king had lost his mind due to fear toward Warlord Hackerin, but the truth was, King Vestin was trying to save his only daughter. Sending her away was the safest thing to do at the moment. However, Warlord Hackerin's subordinate did not approve of it. It's okay, she can stay. Short sentences with a condescending tone from the subordinate angered the elves in the throne room. Despite their anger, they could only hold their tongue because even the elven elders had reacted unfavorably to the king's command. Elder Nizala finally stepped forward and politely spoke to the warlord. Warlord Hackerin, I mean no disrespect, but would you please introduce your companion? The elven elders breathed a sigh of relief when Warlord Hackerin concurred. They would finally know the strange individual who had suppressed their aura. Hackerin took a step back and bowed, as if to make way and show respect to the person beside him before he announced, loud and clear, "You are in the presence of Queen Solol Vatra Saragni, Krahika of the Temple of Ignis, the first blessed queen of Ither and the mistress of flame." A pin drop could be heard in the throne room. The silence became even more deafening when the person wearing the blood-red cloak finally pulled down her hood, showing her vibrant red hair and lava-like eyes. No one could speak. The people inside the throne room could be divided into two. The elves, whose minds became blank at the introduction of the Mistress of Flame, and those who had become dizzy with fright. Then the Mistress of Flame spoke calmly with an expressionless face. "You can relax, I'm not here to burn your sacred forest. Although her lava-like eyes settled on the pale crown princess, I can make an exemption. King Vestin was about to stand to divert the mistress of flame's attention, but her voice was heard once again, and this time her tone was sharp. I heard you insulted my adorable Suridil. Are you courting death? Before anyone could react, the suppressed essence of the Mistress of Flame was suddenly released and exploded. However, it only engulfed one person. Corridil couldn't form a word to defend herself. She could feel a scalding heat pressure engulfing her, suffocating her. She couldn't breathe. And when she did, after a relentless struggle, the air that entered her body was scorching hot that she felt it burning her inside. The crown princess convulsed in pain and her writhing body fell from her seat. No one dared move, not even the elven king. He knew too well how dangerous the mistress of flame was. In his kingdom, no one could defeat her. That was why when she was imprisoned, all who feared the mistress of flame, including himself, were secretly happy that she had been subdued. But fate now came back to bite them. The mistress of flame had been freed from her moonlight prison, and her flames knew no mercy. They had chosen their side long ago when they remained silent after the Ither's siege for self-preservation. Now all they could do was to be obedient. Seeing the mistress of flame anger for Suridil, King Vestin calculated and decided to reach out to his banished daughter for their race's safety. Controlling his emotion, King Vestin spoke directly to the mistress of flame. Your Majesty, please forgive my transgression. May we know the purpose of your visit? Solal didn't turn her attention to the king. She disliked being called Your Majesty, even though she was a queen. It was Warlord Hakarin who answered. We and the Dwarven Kingdom wish to use your concealed port here in the sacred forest to make a medium-sized ship. It will not take long, and we will not disturb you. In return, the Mistress of Flame will not hold enmity to your kingdom after you turned your back on the Mistress of Nature. Everyone became pale, excluding the king who had his emotion under control. Of course, you can use our port. We will cooperate with the Dwarven Kingdom. No need to cooperate. Hakarin immediately cut off the king's desire to help to gain favor. Just let the dwarves enter the sacred forest and they will do the rest. No worries, the dwarves are under the strict order of Queen Solal not to intrude on your kingdom. Unlike some race, the dwarves are loyal to the Ither's queens. Hakarin's last words were full of malice with a hint of warning. Yes. Of course, I understand, King Vestin responded calmly. I will create a special squadron of elven warriors to assist the dwarves. Hakarin nodded, then that is all. After Hakarin spoke his last words, Solal withdrew her essence from the crown princess and put back her hood. Obviously, she did not leave the crown princess unscathed. I hold grudges to those who insult my people. A flame suddenly appeared and engulfed half of the crown princess's face, and a horrifying shriek filled the throne room. Half of Corridil's face was burned by the mistress of flame, and no one moved to save her. No one wanted to anger the queen of flames. Corridil continued to scream, her body spasming, but no one moved. She'll live, just scarred. They heard the calm but cold voice of the mistress of flame, who was walking side by side with Warlord Hakarin toward the throne room door. Just like how you all emotionally scarred my adorable Sierra. The door opened, and the two beings who suffocated the whole throne room stepped out, leaving pale elven elders, a distressed king, and a scarred crown princess. Asdclibcc.